This week marks the 2-year anniversary of the bipartisan infrastructure law. The funding includes $60 million to accelerate the cleanup of thousands of abandoned oil and gas wells across Louisiana. The Department of Natural Resources is overseeing the well plugging process on land and waterways throughout the state. Here's a progress report, plus a look at alternative uses for these out-of-service wells. Along the waterways of Lake Arthur and Lacassine National Wildlife Refuge, herons and gators share habitat with abandoned oil wells and platforms, relics of defunct oil and gas drilling companies that left the structures for the state to clean up.
So what you'll be seeing today is the project removal consists of multiple parts. One is removal of the oil and gas wells, but one of the larger parts is removal of out-of-service production facilities. So this is the one that was just removed from the field, which was a floating production barge. So you'll see the stock tanks that has oil and water and just sludge in the bottom of it.
Across Louisiana, approximately 4,600 oil or gas wells sit abandoned, deemed orphans by the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources, charged with capping and cleaning up the sites.
It really became an issue after the 80s oil bust, when you had a lot of wellheads just out there with nobody responsible for them and no real way to do anything about them. So we create the oilfield site restoration program, where a fee is paid by operators, so much per barrel of oil, so much per 1,000 cubic feet of gas, to fund a program to start plugging these wells.
When the bond requirements kicked in for wellheads, some companies couldn't comply. Others lost the right to operate for not following the rules. Louisiana's Department of Natural Resources is cleaning up the mess with funds from the federal bipartisan infrastructure law and hired contractors with the expertise to do the work.
This is just where we finished up pulling out a well here, and as you can see, it looks like it's never been here.
Capping a well and removing its platform can be a complicated process. Workers pour cement down into the well to seal it up. Then they cut and remove the casing. With floating production barges, the process can be more involved, requiring equipment removal and the cleaning and dismantling of different parts and pieces. It's like what you're watching here.
A standard easy well can be abandoned on these deeper South Louisiana wells in a matter of 3 to 4 days. A complicated well could be 3 to 4 weeks. A facility with no issues could be pulled out and removed in 1 week.
In 2023, 630 orphaned wells have been plugged. That's according to the Department of Natural Resources, and it's more than triple the yearly average. Funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law has accelerated the well capping. Governor John Bel Edwards recently toured these same waters to survey the ongoing work that the state is overseeing on behalf of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service in the Lacassine National Wildlife Refuge.
We're making tremendous progress, and of course, we will get more funding through the formula of the bipartisan infrastructure law, because it's a 5-year program.
Nearly 2/3 of these abandoned wells are concentrated in the northern part of the state, mainly natural gas wells from the Haynesville Shale, a layer of sedimentary rock.
These orphaned wells, are they posing environmental and health risks?
Every orphan well does present that potential, because you have a connection between a deep underground layer where you know at some point there was methane, there was crude oil, and guarantee there's very, very concentrated brine, salt water, that is not good for anything on the surface.
The remnants of the well platforms jutting out of the water or hidden below its surface also pose navigation risk for watercraft. There is a positive purpose, though, for some of the locations of these orphaned well sites that serve as artificial reefs.
So we've identified over 100 sites so far that platforms are scheduled to be removed, and we're following up on those one by one with our replacement programs.
When a wellhead or a platform is removed from the water, it takes with it marine habitat, an underwater ecosystem that has evolved around the base. The Coastal Conservation Association of Louisiana is working to repurpose platforms as artificial reefs.
In this case, it was a helipad from a production platform. This provides that attachment point for the marine organisms to start the food chain, which also in turn goes up through the bait fish and through our sport fish. So this is a very important part of our habitat and our ecosystem.
From a Gulf of Mexico perspective, this is a very important area for us. We have a lot of platforms out here, so it's one of those things where we've worked with CCA over the years to look at opportunities where we can make smart investments that will benefit the environment as well as the communities, and in this case, our angler community.
The state is applying for another round of funding, up to $88 million, to continue capping those wells on land and water. Researchers estimate that there are between 2 to 3 million abandoned oil and gas wells in the United States, and that is uncapped and with no responsible party to manage leaking or pollution risks.